Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Tech Talk 360, and today we're going to be looking at the iPhone 6. Oh, iPhone 5, everybody. Yeah, we're looking at a 1.5-year-old phone. So one thing you guys might be saying is, why are you reviewing the iPhone 5? Well, this is actually a long-term review. Normally what other reviewers do is they get the phone and then they have 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks even to come up with a review for it, and then they either send it back or if they bought it, they keep it. And I feel that 3-week maximum, maybe 4-week even, that doesn't give them enough time to thoroughly understand the performance of the phone in the long term. And I got this phone beginning of June last year, so I know I was a little late on that, but it was a graduation present. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of time to come up with things of what I dislike, like, and think need to be improved, which aren't already improved in the iPhone 5s. So, here is basically the most in-depth review you will find of the iPhone 5. And I'll be comparing it to the 5S and some other new phones like the HTC One, the new one, the M8. And yeah, so let's get started. One of the most important things people consider when buying a new phone or upgrading a phone is battery life. How much more battery life they'll be getting, how much less, how long will the phone last for. Well, I can say that the iPhone, it does mediocre in this category. It has a 1440 milliamp hour battery, and that gives you about 8 hours of continuous talk time. I mean, I haven't tested that, but that's pretty accurate. And then for me, normal day-to-day use, I get about 1.5 day, maybe 2 days on a single charge, and that's because I'm a student, so I'm not on my phone making calls every single day. I might look at it for an hour or two during school. And then when I get home, I'll look at it a couple more hours or something like that. So I'm not always on this, but I get pretty decent battery life. It doesn't affect my daily use. When I come home, I don't have to charge it, but when I go to sleep, I can just put it next to my bed on a charger, and I wake up, and it's perfectly charged. And one thing I want to also talk about is is that the iPhone charges extremely quickly. I mean, it takes a while to fill up. But suppose if you come home, you have 20 minutes to take a shower, get ready, and then go somewhere else. In that 20 minutes, you'll probably gain about 10 to 20% of your battery back already. And that's pretty significant considering that this phone doesn't last for as long as other phones do. Compared to the iPhone 5S and the iPhone 4S, what I've seen is that I think the iPhone 5 actually lasts longer than both of them because it doesn't have a 64-bit architecture which uses more power, and the iPhone 4S isn't really optimized for iOS 7. It's a little bit too powerful for it. I mean, it runs it, but not as smoothly as you would a 5 or a 5S. Another thing people consider when buying a new phone is build quality. How long will it last for? Will it break? Will it scratch easily? And I think that this is where the iPhone has some of its flaws. I mean, from my personal experience, I've seen the iPhone 5 been dropped out of a car, not when it was in the garage. It was a SUV dropped, slide across the rough concrete ground on its screen like that, and pick it up, and there was only a few scratches around the bezel, maybe right here. The screen was perfectly intact. And I've also seen it dropped on a whole bunch of other surfaces, and in my opinion, the build quality or durability of the iPhone 5 is pretty much just how lucky you are. The iPhone is right now the best built phone on the market, and probably the second to that is the HTC M8 One, the new HTC phone. And I think that's pretty good considering the dimensions of this. The 5S has the same dimensions of this, except it has the fingerprint scanner, Touch ID. And so it is 7.6 millimeters thin. And this thing is like so thin. If you just had it in your pocket without a case, you wouldn't. Sometimes I forget I have my phone in my pocket. That's how thin this thing is and how light it is. It is only 3.95 ounces. That is pretty impressive. Another thing people take into consideration when buying an iPhone or when buying any phone is the screen. And as you can see, the screen on the iPhone 5 is the Retina display, and that has a resolution of 640 by 1136 pixels. And that's the same resolution as the 5S, so there's not much difference there. And it has a pixel density of 26 pixels, I believe. Yeah, 326 pixels per inch. And that's not really up to par with the new standards. Like most phones from most Androids nowadays have like in the 400 range, but it's still a great looking screen. You have that beautiful glossy wide angle. You can see it from here. You can see it from here. You can see this screen from basically any single angle. It's an IPS panel, and the glass on the top and the bottom really make it feel luxury. What I feel is one of the iPhone's best features is the camera. Now, let's start with the front-facing camera, because people love to take selfies, let's face it. The front-facing camera, in my opinion, is not the best camera I've ever seen, nor is it the sharpest or anything. It's 1.2 megapixels, and in daylight it performs pretty well, but as soon as it gets dark out, you get all these weird gradient and shading effects, and it just looks bad. Yeah, if you like selfies at night, would not recommend this phone for you. You're gonna have to look at something else. But the back camera is probably one of the best smartphone cameras ever. And the 5S even has a newer one with a larger sensor, I believe, and that's probably even nicer than this. There are other YouTubers who, out of all their phones, carry the iPhone just for its camera. I know Marcus Brownlee does this, I believe. I'm sure there's a couple others, but it has this 8 megapixel camera, and it doesn't have the two flashes like the iPhone 5S, but it has one, and it performs pretty decently. I've taken some pretty good pictures on this phone. So here's an example of this picture I took on this phone while we were in Hawaii. And as you can see, here's another one. And these are all very high resolution. You can zoom in, and the detail is great. As you can see, the detail is magnificent. You can see all the people in the water here. You can see pretty much everything. And also the panorama mode on this phone is really great. As you can see, we were on the top of Diamond Hand Crater while we were in Hawaii, and I took this panorama, and you can just see the quality. Like, it's basically having a bunch of 8 megapixel shots without Photoshop stitched next to each other. If you wanted to do this, you'd have to take a picture, probably download some third-party app, and then take another picture, and it would come up with kind of this blocky image. The tones didn't really match each other, it didn't flow, but the panorama is one of the best features of the iPhone. Now, this iPhone is not as powerful as the 64-bit new iPhone 5S, but it sure does pack a punch with its Apple A6 chip, which is clocked at 1.3 GHz and is a dual core. It's sporting 1 GB of RAM, and let's see how that performs in Geekbench. So as you can see, I don't have any other applications open, and let's fire up Geekbench here. And run processor benchmarks, and we'll just let that sit here. Let me focus the camera, and then we'll do a time lapse. Okay, so here we have this final score of, hold on, let me get the camera focused, of 716 for the single core and 1,284 for the multi-core. And as you can see, there's our iOS 1, iPhone 5, iPhone 5.2, 1.3 gigahertz. Here's the floating point, and the single core is 579, and the multi-core is 1,142. Here is the memory settings, or memory score, sorry. and I'll put these all in a comparison with the iPhone 5s, the new HTC M8, all the new phones, and I'll throw in the iPhone 4s just for fun to see how much it beats it by. So as you can see, I ran the iPhone 5 benchmarks a couple more times, and my score went up a little bit, but nothing too drastic. So as you can see that the iPhone 4 is just way out of the picture here with 215 and 406. You can see that the iPhone 5s pretty much trumps everybody in the single core category. That's because it only has 2 cores, so it has to rely on 2 cores, while all the Android phones are the Snapdragon 4 cores. So they have more power to work with, so they don't have to have as high of a score on each core. And then our iPhone 5 is just kind of dwindling down there. I mean, yeah, this is where the iPhone 5 really needs to step up his game. As you can see, the iPhone 5s did that. So if you need a lot of heavy stuff, then pretty much get the 5s. Otherwise, stick with the 5. It's good for you. So I'm not going to be asking you, should you buy the iPhone 5 or who would, because you can't really buy the iPhone 5 anymore. It's either the 5s or the other option that's like free from Apple. I think it's like 4S or 4, something like that. So the question really is, should you upgrade to the iPhone 5s or wait for the iPhone 6, whatever the next one's going to be called? We have no clue. And I think that if you have an iPhone 5, the iPhone 5s, unless you're really desperate and want to have all your fingers scanned, put on the internet somewhere, I think that the iPhone 5s isn't really worth the upgrade. Unless you are a business professional, maybe. Unless you want to do like a lot of remote connectivity or heavy processing. I don't know why you do heavy processing on a phone anyway, but if you wanted to do that, or if you play a lot of graphic intensive games. I'm talking like really demanding games, because I can play Infinity Blade all day long here, and it works pretty much just fine. It's pretty smooth. And yeah, so unless you're really desperate and it's not going to be much of a price factor or anything, I don't see any point in going for the 5S. I say wait for the 6. I mean, for now your iPhone 5 will hold up just fine. And if you're still stuck on the 4S, I would totally upgrade, because I don't know what you're doing with your life, but I'm just kidding, guys. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is Tech Talk 360 signing out. Peace.